Pete Braffett here from Gemico Marine Accessories. Today I'm going to give you an overview of a very simple installation of a typical in-hull transducer. We're going to start with a few simple tools. We're going to use an angle finder. If you don't have an angle finder, you can use a free app such as our install app available on the iOS or Android store. We're going to use a sanding block anywhere from 80 to 220 grit. Really depends on the surface of your hull and how rough it is. Rubbing alcohol to clean the surface before mounting the lower flange, and silicone to adhere the flange to the hull. It's a really simple installation, and again, probably have everything here laying around already. So after you've selected your mounting location, the next step is to use an angle finder or a similar tool to calculate the dead rise angle of the hull. That dead rise angle is going to become the mounting angle of the in-hull transducer flange. In this case, we've got 18 degrees. If you don't already own an angle finder, you can use one of many available free apps to calculate the dead rise. This example here is our install app. So the next step is to prep the area where the transducer is going to be installed. I'm going to do that by simply marking it, tracing the flange out with a permanent marker so we know the area that we want to clean. It'll just save us some time. So the next step is going to be to take our sanding block and sand down the area where we're going to apply it. The goal here is to get all of the loose paint, debris, and any oil or anything else in the hull completely removed so we have a clean, naked mounting surface and we get really good adhesion with the silicone. Alternately, this can be done with a power tool as well. So when you're satisfied that the mounting area is clean, there's no loose paint, and you're going to have good adhesion, next step is to clean that mounting area with some rubbing alcohol. All right, so next step is to use a little alcohol to clean the hull area and make sure we get good adhesion for the silicone. So earlier we calculated 18 degrees of dead rise at the mounting location. There are corresponding marks, so we're going to locate the 18 degree marks here on the mounting flange. And that is going to rest the flange so that you're lined up on those 18 degree marks perpendicular to the keel line. If it's easier for you, if you're in a difficult installation, it's suitable to draw yourself a line perpendicular to the keel. And that allows you to line the flange marks up and locate them on both sides. All right, and our next step is going to be to prep the mounting flange. I'm going to use the same sanding block I used previously and just rough up that surface, make sure we get any mold release, grease oil, or anything off there. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the alcohol we used earlier, and I'm going to clean that mounting flange. And just for good measure, I'll go ahead and clean the mounting surface one more time, just to make sure we're going to get the best possible adhesion. We'll let everything dry, and then we'll be ready to mount our flange. So the next step is going to be to apply a generous bead of silicone to the mounting flange. Alternately, you can use 4200 or 5200 if you're more comfortable with it, but silicone is more than suitable for this application. A lot of people feel that the silicone is actually a better product because it remains flexible even after it's cured. It's great for combating the vibrations that are typical in a marine environment. So now that we've got our sealant applied, we're going to relocate those 18 degree marks. We're going to line them up over the perpendicular line, and then we're going to apply the flange to the hull. Now it's important not to press all the sealant out. I typically will make sure that I'm evenly applying the flange and getting a little bit of press out all the way around and also on the inside. You do not have to push this flange tight against the hull. Matter of fact, if you do that, you lose some of the vibration resistance in your mount. So now that that's in place, we're going to just let that set. Once that silicone's set, we're going to come back and finish the installation. So while we're waiting for that sealant to cure, we might as well go ahead and prep the transducer for the finished installation. So earlier we calculated 18 degrees of dead rise. You'll notice on the flange on the top of the transducer, there is corresponding marks and a mold line. So we're going to locate the 18 degree mark. We're going to locate the mold line here on the base flange, and we're going to line the two up. So now we've got it lined up at 18 degrees. That's how we get that proper rotation and angle that'll match up to what we did previously against the hull. So now it's as simple as inserting one of the included stainless steel screws in each of the two mounting holes, and we'll tighten those up, and we'll be ready for the final installation. Be careful not to over tighten those two screws. You want to go until that flange is pulled tight and you're comfortable that that gap is sealed. And there we've removed any gaps all the way around there. The last step in the prep is to apply the O-ring. So simply slip the O-ring down until it contacts that mounting base. Once you drop it into the flange, that'll seal that flange up so the fluid stays in and can't leak out into the bilge. So now that the sealant is cured and the transducer was prepped, we can go ahead and do a dry run installation. So the first thing we want to do is we want to apply silicone grease. This is just dielectric silicone. You can also use petroleum jelly. But we want to apply it liberally to this O-ring. I'm just going to take my finger and just make sure that that's evenly distributed. The easier that O-ring goes in, the easier the total installation. So the transducer in its final installation should be roughly in a level orientation. So you can see that there's two clock positions that could be used there. So I want to make sure that I install it in the clock position that is closest to level. So we're going to check the orientation. We're going to make sure that we're level in both directions, and we are. So we're ready to do our final installation. So I'll remove that from its seat. So to fill that, we're going to use non-toxic RV antifreeze. You can also use non-toxic engine coolant. Doesn't take a whole lot. We're going to fill, there's a small witness line here inside that transducer housing, and we're just going to fill just shy of the base of that. You want to make sure that that cavity is full. It's okay if a little bit of the fluid gets pushed out. You want to make sure there's no air inside there. So I'm going to put a paper towel here. A little bit of spillage is fine on the antifreeze. Matter of fact, if you don't see any come out, you could assume that maybe you didn't put enough fluid in there and you've got air trapped. So I tend to fill it right to that line, let a little bit of it come out of the bilge. I'm going to line it up with those two bayonet fittings, and a quarter turn is all it takes to lock that in place. You'll see it's a solid installation. I'll wipe up the little bit that spilled out. Again, there's no harm in that. Now I know that there's no air trapped inside that assembly. And that's important because as the boat goes through the dynamic motion, you want to make sure that there's not an air bubble running under the face of that transducer. So now that installation's complete, again, I'm just going to give it a quick look, make sure that it's level in both directions. Very happy with that installation, and now we're ready to go fishing.